Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. The State Department trying to speed up evacuations of Americans and Afghan allies. We hear from a retired general and a foreign policy expert. And we hear reactions from Afghans around the world as they cope with their home country coming under Taliban rule. Some fear for the lives of their family members, while others look on in shock. And an exclusive interview with Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer. The Space Force officer is leaving the military after being fired for denouncing Marxism. And thousands of workers at the General Motors plant in Mexico will vote on their union this week. The rare opportunity to reject the union comes as the first major test of new labor rules under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. As many as 15,000 Americans are waiting to be evacuated from Afghanistan. The U.S. is sending a former ambassador and an Army Major General, hopefully, to secure the airport and speed up evacuations. NTD's Jessica Beatty reports.
The State Department said Tuesday it's completed its drawdown of embassy personnel from Kabul. Now, remaining staff are helping evacuate Americans and Afghan allies.
Our team is working hand in glove with military colleagues to help load planes safely and securely and as fast as possible.
As of Tuesday, over 3,000 U.S. citizens, permanent residents, and their families have been evacuated. Republican Senator Tom Cotton said Tuesday he couldn't understand why the Biden administration would close Bagram Air Base and bring troops back before evacuating U.S. citizens. Former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper also weighed in.
President Biden owns this. He owns the mess, the catastrophe that has been created over the past couple weeks, and should own up to it. And really, at this point, we have to remedy the situation.
But foreign policy expert Richard Fontaine says the larger failure can't be pinned on any one person.
Anyone who's watched or been involved in any way with Afghanistan policy over the past 20 years can point to numerous large mistakes that the United States made along the way, and numerous ways in which the government of Afghanistan didn't step up in ways that we had hoped and expected.
Retired General David Petraeus says, although the former Afghan government had its faults, it did support U.S. efforts to keep al-Qaeda out of the country. He says it's important to support Afghans who helped the U.S.
Really is a Dunkirk moment in Kabul. And that is to do everything humanly possible to rescue those who put their lives and the lives of their family members in jeopardy by serving alongside our troops.
So what would it take for the Taliban to show General Petraeus that they're sincere?
I would say invite us back to Bagram Air Base, say let's reopen it. They don't have an air force to keep an eye on al-Qaeda. We will be more than happy to do that. That would convince me.
For now, the U.S. has frozen over $9 billion in Afghanistan's assets, trying to keep it out of the hands of the Taliban. The speed of evacuations is expected to pick up Wednesday and throughout the week. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
3 Democrat-led Senate committees are demanding answers on the Biden administration's handling of the U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. Leaders of the Senate's Intelligence, Foreign Relations, and Armed Services committees all issued statements. They plan to look into what caused the chaos during the pullout. Democrat Senator Bob Menendez says seeing the Afghan army dissolve so quickly is astounding. He says it's the culmination of a series of policy mistakes and intelligence failures over the past 20 years. And Republican Senator Ted Cruz says Biden caused an embarrassing spectacle, a diplomatic humiliation, and a national security catastrophe. And we're getting a sense now of just how quickly life is changing for Afghan citizens who are once again under Taliban rule.
At the central Kabul market today, stores were open and people were back on the streets. Or at least some people. It was impossible not to notice that women here seem to have largely melted away. One store was doing better business than usual. For more than a decade, Mohammed has been selling burqas, the head-to-toe covering once imposed by the Taliban.
Why do you think you're selling more burqas right now?
Because the Taliban took over and all the women are afraid. So that's why they're all coming in and buying burqas. In an apartment downtown, we saw that fear firsthand. Until last week, Fazila was working for the UN. That's not her real name, and she asks we not show her face. She's petrified that the Taliban will link her to Western organizations and says she hasn't gone outside since they arrived in Kabul.
It is not easy for a person to work a lot with international organization, having more than 10 years experience of working with international, and now no one of them helped me. Just sending emails to different organizations that I work with you, but now no response.
The Taliban says they have learned from history and that women's rights will be protected. But many fearful Afghan women remain to be persuaded. Fauzia Kufi was one of the Afghan government negotiators during peace talks with the Taliban and has dealt with the group a lot. She says that promising change is not enough.
They have to really prove it in the provinces across Afghanistan. They have to show it by example. It's very easy to issue statements, but people need to see that in practice.
Kufi has every reason not to trust. Last year, she was shot by unknown gunmen. The Taliban denied they were behind the attack.
You have children?
I have 2 daughters.
And are they here?
They are in Kabul.
And are you concerned for them, or?
I'm concerned for my daughters and all the girls of Afghanistan. I don't want history to repeat itself on them very brutally.
20 years of progress for women in Afghanistan now hangs by a thread.
Afghans around the world are reacting to the country coming back under Taliban rule. A man in Russia fears for the lives of his family stranded in Afghanistan, and another in Germany says he can't sleep thinking about what is happening to his family. An Afghan fled to Russia as the Taliban came to power. He left because he feared he would lose his life under the militants' rule. He left his family behind, but he says they were supposed to fly out to meet him. His family couldn't board the plane for unknown reasons, and now they're stranded in Afghanistan.
My hope was this fun idea through football. I think that they will come with me, but right now I don't see any hope. But the only thing that I can request is from from UNHCR, from Russian Federation, from these countries, that please help me to get them out of Afghanistan, because if I couldn't get them out of Afghanistan, they will definitely die.
These Afghan students caught the last flight from Kabul before the airport closed. They say people in the country are concerned because they don't know if they're going to have food, money, water, or medical supplies. They described the chaos in Kabul on Tuesday.
Some of the people were heading towards banks to get money out of it so they can survive more. Some people were heading towards the airport so they can get out of the country and be safer. And some people were just heading towards the country to know the situation and have some plans for it.
Hundreds of people turned out in Cologne and Berlin to protest the German government's handling of the situation in Afghanistan. They are calling for Germany to airlift endangered citizens.
My family are in Afghanistan, and I can't describe how I feel. I haven't been able to sleep for 3 or 4 days. It's like I've gone mad. I don't know what is happening with my family, where my family are. I heard that they are somewhere between Pakistan and Kabul, and at the moment, all the borders are closed.
After the U.S., the second biggest military presence in Afghanistan is Germany's. The country wants to evacuate German Afghans along with rights activists and lawyers. But the country's first plane to land in Kabul could only rescue 7 people because of the chaos at the airport. People fleeing Afghanistan arrived safely in the UK late Tuesday. It follows Britain's move to welcome thousands of Afghans. And evacuees also arrived in Germany early Wednesday morning. They landed at Frankfurt Airport following the Taliban takeover. Lufthansa is planning to send 3 flights to evacuate people from the country. What's more, French nationals and staff who were in Afghanistan arrived in Paris on Tuesday, and Chile welcomed Afghans, especially women. The country's president says one thing he learned from Afghanistan is that it is difficult to build democratic institutions, but easy to ruin them.
But in addition to that, it's a humanitarian crisis, because there is an experience with the previous Taliban government in Afghanistan that was very cruel to women, and hence we have a special solidarity. And I want to say that Chile is collaborating and already committed its effort to help women who have dedicated themselves to protecting women's rights in Afghanistan.
He says Chile is committed to welcoming and hosting Afghan families. The Biden administration says it will start rolling out vaccine boosters in September. Most people will be able to get another shot 8 months after their initial vaccination, but a number of health experts are saying they want to see more data.
President Joe Biden talking boosters. Preliminary data suggests the general population might need a booster about 8 months after their final dose. Both Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech say their 2-dose vaccines are protective for at least 6 months. But Pfizer-BioNTech submitted initial data to the FDA saying a 3rd shot may help maintain a high level of protection against COVID-19. Still, a number of health experts say they want to see more data from the CDC.
There are data emerging from Israel, from the United Kingdom, that look as if the immunity may be waning, but it's unclear what is waning. I would hope that their guidance is nuanced enough so that people can choose.
It will be very important that the data are shared so everyone can take a look and make a decision as to what they want to do.
And there's still the challenge of getting more people to get their first dose.
A Space Force officer is leaving the military in September. He was relieved of his command 3 months ago for denouncing Marxism and critical race theory. Now he recounts the experience in an interview on the Epoch Times American Thought Leaders program. Here's more.
Talking with the Epoch Times American Thought Leaders program, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer spoke about his upcoming departure from the military on September 1st. The Space Force officer was removed from his commanding post in May. That's after speaking out against critical race theory and Marxism in the military.
I wrote a letter to then acting Secretary of the Air Force explaining certain circumstances which I don't plan to make public, but also requesting an early retirement and a separation honorably from the service. And they've denied me an early retirement, but agreed that they would separate me.
During the interview, Lohmeyer described what he called the politicization of the military and the double standards at play.
Service members are allowed to advocate for the revolutionary agenda, narrative, and cause, but to either disagree with talking points or ideas or to point out the partisanship is to have a finger wagged back at you and to be accused of being politically partisan. Our service members are trained that they're supposed to be apolitical, and for good reason. And yet every aspect of their lives at the moment is becoming politicized.
3 months ago, Lohmeyer published a book titled Irresistible Revolution and promoted it on a podcast. The book cautions against allowing the spread of Marxist ideology. He also criticized the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda that is now widely talked about in the military.
The diversity, equity, and inclusion industry is steeped in critical race theory, which is rooted in Marxist ideology, and that's 100% correct.
After his appearance on the podcast, Lieutenant General Stephen Whiting relieved Lohmeyer of his command. Multiple members of Congress criticized the move. Top Republican Jim Inhofe on the Senate Armed Services Committee stated that members of our military should not only be able to speak out against Marxism, but they should be encouraged to do so, as long as they follow the rules and laws already in place. Marxism is an ideology that goes against everything this country stands for. Lohmeyer plans to accept public speaking engagements. In recent months, he's also received invitations to various events.
Over 6,000 workers at the General Motors plant in Mexico are voting on their union this week. It will mark the first major test of labor rules under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or the USMCA. Here are the details.
Workers at the GM plant in Silao, central Mexico, are voting on Tuesday and Wednesday. They'll decide whether to reject their collective bargaining agreement, a written contract between the employer and the union representing workers. It comes as a rare opportunity for them to oust their current union and bring in new representation.
We have got a new labor agreement with the TMEC, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. That, unlike the North American Free Trade Agreement signed in 1994, in this occasion, it puts the labor issue at the center of discussion. To avoid infringing workers' rights has opened the possibility of companies in agreement with anti-democratic trade unionism to not violate workers' rights.
Some workers say their current union, the Miguel Trujillo Lopez Union, protects the company's interests over their interests. This week's vote follows a failed vote in April, marred by serious irregularities. This time, the union says it will ensure a fair vote, and GM says it will respect the result.
The voting will be more ordered, and people at this moment have the correct information. They know what the collective contract is about. They know what it represents, so we are going to leave with a positive result.
The Silao plant makes around 1/3 of all GM trucks. If the company doesn't comply with USMCA's labor enforcement tools, it could face a 25% tariff on its pickups made in Silao.
Nearly 2,000 people are dead and nearly 10,000 injured after a massive earthquake rocked Haiti, triggering an unfolding humanitarian disaster.
New devastation on top of an unfolding humanitarian disaster in Haiti. Relentless rains from Tropical Storm Grace triggering flooding and mudslides on the earthquake-shattered country. Roads turning to rivers, setting back life-saving relief efforts. People whose homes crumbled in the quake, braving the storm under blankets and makeshift tents. Humanitarian aid group UNICEF saying in a statement that Tropical Storm Grace is further disrupting access to water, shelter, and other basic services. Flooding and mudslides are likely to worsen the situation of vulnerable families and further complicate the humanitarian response. Around 1.2 million people, including more than 500,000 children, have been impacted by the powerful 7.2 magnitude quake, according to UNICEF. The Pentagon has now launched a joint task force to assist U.S. aid in disaster relief efforts.
We do expect that 4 field hospitals from U.S. Southern Command will be set up in southern Haiti by later this week.
Now, widespread devastation is being revealed in NASA satellite images. In January, showing a vibrant green flourishing land, now scarred by massive landslides triggered by the earthquake.
A South Florida city holds deep ties to the area in Haiti affected by Saturday's earthquake, Boynton Beach. It lies between West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale.
There is a pretty vibrant Haitian community here in Boynton Beach, and this city has been very, very kind and very respectful in their relationship with Lekais.
The Haitian community is a very transient community in terms of, even though they live here, they're usually visiting Haiti at least a few times per year. And so you're seeing that ability or that feeling of, well, there's nowhere to go now. Home is destroyed, home is gone. And so that feeling is the feeling of just that loss that can't be replaced.
I talked to about more than 100 people. Each one of them has a good bad news. I have a family dying. I have a family who is injured. My house collapsed. People outside.
Any of us who's here, we are devastated and heartbroken about this. Devastated. I had 0 sleep last night.
Many residents of Boynton Beach worry about their loved ones, friends, and childhood homes. Some are mourning relatives who died, and others are trying to gather supplies and shelter materials. In the last decade, the Haitian population of Boynton Beach has grown. The city already had an established partnership with the Haitian city of Lekais, and that city is at the center of the devastation. Boynton Beach has previously welcomed Lekais officials, including a former mayor who died in Saturday's 7.2 magnitude quake. The Transportation Security Administration is extending the federal transportation mask mandate into the middle of January. The TSA made a public announcement on extending the requirement Tuesday. The mandate was going to expire on September 13th. The FAA said Tuesday it's gotten upwards of 2,800 reports of passengers violating the mandate so far this year. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has tested positive for the disease caused by the CCP virus. It's a breakthrough case, as he was fully vaccinated. He published a video to social media talking about his experience and what he plans to do now.
Hi, this is Governor Greg Abbott. As you may have heard by now, I have tested positive for COVID-19. I test myself every day, and today is the first day that I tested positive. The good news is that my wife continues to test negative. Also want you to know that I have received the COVID-19 vaccine, and that may be one reason why I'm really not feeling any symptoms right now. I have no fever, no aches and pains, no other types of symptoms. As I work my way through this, I will stay engaged every single day on everything happening in the Texas Capitol, including working with the members of the legislature as well as members across the entire state.
Abbott will remain at the governor's mansion and receive antibody treatment. According to the Associated Press, Abbott is at least the 11th governor to test positive. Abbott displayed a picture he took with guitarist Jamie Vaughn before his positive test. Vaughn says he and his family tested negative. The governor's spokesman says everyone the governor has been in contact with has been notified. The 63-year-old governor is up for re-election in 2022. Outgoing New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has officially filed for retirement. The New York State Comptroller's Office says it will go into effect September 1st. Current law says Cuomo can receive a state pension. The Comptroller spokesperson says Cuomo is classified as a Tier 4 member of the New York State and local employees' retirement system with nearly 15 years worth of unaudited serve credit. Cuomo, who resigned last week amid sexual harassment allegations, could possibly receive around $50,000 per year. Some state lawmakers are attempting to enact legislation that removes the pension of people who are convicted of impeachment charges, but there's no word on how much backing that movement has. The Texas Supreme Court ruled Tuesday that the State House can compel the attendance of its members by civil arrest. The ruling overturns an order from a lower court earlier this month. At issue is the absence of the majority of House Democrats since July 12th. They left the state during the first special session in order to prevent GOP efforts to pass voting measures. Republicans say the action is meant to secure elections. The State House Speaker last week signed 52 civil arrest warrants for the Democrats who were absent without excuse. But a state district judge issued a temporary restraining order and no arrests were made. Shortly after the Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday, the Texas Attorney General's office tweeted, "House Democrats were elected to do a job, and it is time for them to come home and do just that, regardless if the outcome doesn't lean in their favor." Opening statements and testimony in the R. Kelly federal trial in New York begin today. The singer is facing racketeering and sex trafficking charges and is potentially looking at decades behind bars. A jury of 7 men and 5 women were chosen. Their identities will not be revealed. They'll also be partially sequestered. Prosecutors claim Kelly led a criminal enterprise made up of people who helped promote his musical career. Kelly denies the allegations against him. He was also acquitted in 2008 of child pornography charges. Tennessee's former top vaccination official is being accused of sending a dog muzzle to herself to fabricate a threat. This comes after an investigation concludes the muzzle was paid for with her credit card from an Amazon account in her name. But the former official is denying the accusation. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Tennessee's former chief vaccine official, Dr. Michelle Fiscus, was sent a dog muzzle a week before she was fired in early July and claimed it was sent to intimidate her. She previously appeared on CNN to discuss the claims. However, an investigation by the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security has found that the muzzle was paid for with Fiscus's own American Express credit card from an Amazon account in her name. The investigative report for the case, which concluded Monday, was first obtained by Axios. Special Agent Mario Vigil wrote in a memo attached to the case that there is no evidence to indicate that the dog muzzle was intended to threaten Dr. Fiscus. Fiscus told investigators that she had been singled out and criticized by some members of the public and several state legislators for her role in the state's vaccine program, and authoring a memo that said minors could obtain medical care without parents' permission. According to the report, 2 Amazon accounts in Fiscus's name were found through subpoena. One she shared with investigators, while the other was used to purchase the muzzle. The report stated, the results of this investigation indicate that purchases from both Amazon accounts were charged to the same American Express credit card in the name of Dr. Michelle D. Fiscus. In an interview with News Channel 5 Monday, Fiscus admitted the charge for the muzzle showed up on her bank statement, but denied buying it.
I can't tell you how that happened, except that I have used that credit card to purchase travel and register for conferences and other things that have been reimbursed by the state of Tennessee.
She indicated to the outlet that someone who works for the state government could be behind it.
I think there's enough information at the state that if they wanted to fabricate this, they surely have access to my credit card number in files.
Fiscus also said in a tweet that the second Amazon account was apparently accessed from Washington State, where she says she's never been. Fiscus says she's asked the state for the full unredacted report to investigate further. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Coming up, wildfires continue to burn across several western states. A new blaze emerges and residents evacuate, leaving behind homes and businesses. Stay tuned to find out more.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Are you looking for a news source that does not spin the truth, doesn't push any false narratives, and instead presents you with the facts and lets you make up your own mind? Then go to readepic.com and try the Epic Times newspaper for yourself. It's pure honest journalism that's based in traditional values.
Firefighters faced dangerously windy weather Tuesday as they struggled to keep the nation's largest wildfire from advancing toward a northern California city, while another blaze emerged in a small mountain community to the southeast. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
On Monday afternoon, winds pushed the monstrous Dixie Fire to within about 8 miles of Susanville. To the southeast, a small blaze called the Calder Fire exploded through Grizzly Flats, a town of about 1,200.
A lot of smoke last night. We got out last night. Packing all day yesterday and got out last night. Looked up, saw the clouds coming, the smoke, and we got out.
Very few homes were left standing in Grizzly Flats, and streets were littered with downed power lines and poles. 2 people with serious injuries were airlifted to hospitals, fire officials said. Local Derek Shaves said he visited Grizzly Flats Tuesday.
I physically saw my home, which is a pile of ash, which is on an acre of property and a 1,600 foot home. It's a pile of ash. Everybody on my block is a pile of ash.
At the Dixie Fire, residents were warned to be ready to evacuate. The Dixie Fire is the largest of nearly 100 major wildfires. The blazes are burning across more than a dozen western states. Susanville is the largest city that the Dixie Fire has approached since it broke out last month. The Dixie Fire has scorched more than 940 square miles in the northern Sierra Nevada and southern Cascades since it ignited on July 13th. 24 other fires were burning in Montana, and nearly 50 more in Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, according to the National Fire Interagency Center. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Almonds are one of California's top crops and its biggest agricultural export, but the current drought is threatening the state's water-intensive almond orchards.
California produces around 80% of the world's almonds, but the current drought continues to threaten the state's $6 billion industry. Unable to obtain or afford water, some almond growers have stopped irrigating their orchards, letting the trees die. Others are leaving fields unplanted to save water for their almonds.
We're in the second year of this drought, but it's really serious, and it's as serious, if not more so, than any drought that we've been in before.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, California has around 2,500 square miles of land throughout the Central Valley dedicated to almond trees.
As you can see, there's one orchard here that's drying up because they just didn't have the money to buy the water. And we're seeing this all over the valley.
Almond orchards need water year-round, requiring approximately 10% of California's water supply. However, the U.S. Drought Monitor reported that 88% of the state was in extreme drought in early August, with Central Valley facing the worst conditions. State and federal officials have reduced water for agriculture, forcing many farmers to leave fields unplanted or switch to higher value crops that use less water. Farmers say this will impact the amount of almonds produced in California.
And we've had to fallow land. Almost a third of my farm is fallow in order to keep our trees alive, to save the water from the fallow land for our trees.
Some critics say almonds are not sustainable at current levels in California. One nonprofit suggests banning almond orchards in areas that don't have adequate water supplies.
If we're conserving in the cities so that they can grow more almonds, it's simply not fair because it's not benefiting the majority of Californians.
The drought has drained reservoirs which supply water to farms in the Central Valley. Shasta Lake, the state's largest reservoir, is only 33% full, while Lake Oroville, the second largest, is only 26% full, according to the California Department of Water Resources. If the water situation does not improve, some almond growers are preparing to tear out their orchards years earlier than planned.
Illinois is starting up its annual state fair again after closing during the lockdown. In addition to food, music, and fun, the fair's farm-themed and educational attractions present a unique experience for visitors.
At the annual state fair in Springfield, Illinoisans enjoy food and fun. Aside from lively music and rides, the fair showcases Illinois' proud agriculture tradition. There are various farm-themed attractions like animal races and a butter sculpture of a cow, an unofficial icon of the fair since the 1920s. 16-year-old Jill Eukin from Mahomet, Illinois, was invited to speak at the Meet the Farmers event. As part of a supervised agriculture experience project, the high school junior successfully cultivated and harvested 500 thriving sweet potato plants, an unusual crop in Illinois.
Looking out over my plot of land and seeing it first all planted and put together and being like, wow, like this is it. This is what my life's kind of dedicated to for now this summer and into fall.
Also at the fair was the Looking for Lincoln organization that manages the 43-county Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area.
Lincoln is one of those iconic figures that there's so much we can learn from him and his leadership style and his character, his honesty, his integrity, that I think that we don't use history often enough to inform the present.
So it's not just all about me, but it's about trying to help people be the kind of people that they really want to be, the best kind of people.
Of all the smiling faces, of all the kids who already know who he is and come running up and give him a hug, I think those are all the things that says we're going to be okay.
Last year, the Illinois State Fair was canceled because of the pandemic. While the crowd is smaller than previous years, people are enjoying the outdoor festivities.
We've been cooped up for too long. It's time to live.
This year's fair remains open until August 22nd.
Many Chinese students are rushing to the U.S. At an airport in Shanghai, there's a line thousands of feet long. All of them are waiting to board an international flight. NTD's Don Ma has more.
A recent online video captures Chinese students lining up en masse at a Shanghai airport, and many of them are going to the U.S. The huge demand on top of a shortage of U.S.-bound flights from China, ticket prices have soared more than 400%. According to Chinese media Yicai News, mid-August is the peak season for Chinese students heading overseas. It comes just ahead of the fall term, the start of the new school year. The report says that in July, U.S.-bound plane tickets ranged from $770 to $2,400. Just a month later, those ticket prices skyrocketed to the $3,000 to $15,000 range.
There's an economy class seat for August 25th. The ticket fare is 21,360 yuan. The business class seat is 76,862 yuan. August 25th is peak season for international students to return to school. These prices are the lowest right now. Their higher price tickets are more than 90,000 yuan.
Yitai News also reports there are fewer than 20 direct flights traveling from China and the US right now.
There are not many international flights right now, not many per day. For example, today there were only 2. There's one New York-bound flight today.
A Beijing political affairs commentator tells NTD that there could be a number of reasons behind the demand.
The tide of people rushing to the United States is because the U.S. is still the preferred place to go for people around the world. Another reason is because the situation within China is tense. There are crackdowns happening on the elite. So these people are on edge and hastily rush to the U.S. They don't hesitate to buy a 100,000 yuan ticket.
Hua notes that many are going overseas in search of a better future. Don Ma, NTD News.
Up next, Buenos Aires, often called the Paris of South America, will be open for business come October. After a gold medal performance in Tokyo, Team Sweden's pole vault superstar wants to take his career further. All that and more here on NTD News.
If you're like most of us, you're probably getting fed up with the nonsense that's going on in the banking system. Did you know that top U.S. banks have recently amended their depositor terms and conditions to include the words bank failure and what's required of you in 24 hours if, or should I say when, it happens? Don't get blindsided by your bank. Call GSI Exchange today to pick up your complimentary copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide at 866-424-2382. We'll also send you the required format to file with your bank within 24 hours of their failure, which is now required by the top banks to avoid freezing of your funds. Yes, the top banks can now freeze your money. The world is in a strange place, and banks are constantly changing the rules. So stay on top of the current events that really matter by calling GSI Exchange and requesting your free guide at 866-424-2382.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
Protesters gather in front of a gym at a city in Quebec, Canada. They're protesting a vaccine passport test program and vaccine passport requirement that's set to become widespread next month. Police say about 70 people joined the protest. The Econo Fitness Gym is one of many businesses involved in the pilot program. On September 1st, the province will impose vaccine passport requirements on many venues. Richard Gurgis of Fearless Canada told CTV News that the vaccine passport measure is rolling out before its legality can be challenged and that hospitalization rates are not high enough to justify it. The protest in the city of Laval comes days after a larger one took place in Montreal. Canada is also working on a digital vaccine passport that can be used when traveling abroad. Buenos Aires is known for its normally booming tourism, but it remains unusually empty. The city is now hoping to attract crowds once global travel resumes this year. Here's more.
Buenos Aires, Argentina, often called the Paris of South America. It's home to some of the most traditional and trendy tourist spots on the continent. But amid the pandemic, those spots sit mostly empty. Domestic visitors are coming, but they're few and far between. Holiday makers looking for a getaway are flocking to the countryside, with big cities still seen as virus hotspots.
Buenos Aires was highly affected. Accommodation capacity is at 5%. Half of the hotels are open. I'm not saying that the other half won't open in the future. We are going through a really difficult situation.
The city's council tried to ease financial hardship by offering tax exemptions and grants, but businesses are suffering. They also set up a system of mandatory virus testing stations. Tourists can take a test in 10 minutes and receive results just after 3 hours.
I think testing is great. The more testing, the more control you get in order to take care of yourself and others.
And on July 2nd, after 15 months, museums and theaters reopen. One of those is the beloved Cologne Theater.
I have normalized the pandemic. We cannot live in fear. We have to take care of ourselves, but we need to go out.
In the charmingly rustic La Boga district, tourists stroll the colorful alleyways. The district marks the heart of the country's western wine region. In the upmarket Recoleta district, locals can now be seen enjoying the sunlit terraces of street cafes, a much-needed relief after months of lockdown.
We closed our doors on March 18, 2020, when the pandemic began. We spent a couple of months managing our costs when we realized how this was lasting over time. It got really complicated to stay open.
Argentina's borders are still closed to foreign visitors. They made a brief attempt to reopen to citizens from certain South American countries. But as of now, with rare exceptions, they'll only be allowed back with the rest of the world.
We can't conceive ourselves the idea of no travel because the meeting of cultures that occurs in big cities like Buenos Aires is a life-changing experience. We are regressing because of that. I think we missed this meeting so much.
Argentina plans to reopen its borders to foreign visitors this October. The city's tourist board is predicting numbers to beat their record from 2019.
Artisans in Ukraine are striving to keep an ancient profession alive. An ethnic group known as the Hutzels started the country's axe-making tradition and passed it down for generations. Here are the details.
Long handles, colorful heads. These ornate axes are one of the most prized handcrafts of the Hutzels. This ethnic group now inhabits the Carpathian Mountains of Ukraine. In the Hutzel village of Brustery, a small number of craftsmen still possess the skills to make traditional axes.
I worked at the workshop with my grandfather. I watched how it was done, usually helping him. I'm self-taught. I've never learned to be a Mozyasnik axe maker. I didn't learn that in an institute.
Making a Hutzel axe is no easy task. The process begins with kindling a fire inside a furnace. The temperature must reach over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Metals are heated, then poured into a mold to make the axe head. In his workshop, Haporak then polishes the mold and crafts a wooden handle. His son drills holes for further embellishments.
We start to tap the colored plastic with a pattern.
Here, Haporak's wife completes the final step, decoration. The family can create 30 to 40 axes a month. Haporak is the 6th generation embracing the artistic metal craft. He's now passing on his knowledge to his 9-year-old son.
This is a tradition. That's why I will continue to keep it.
In the past, traditional axes were used for hiking in the mountains or everyday work on the farm. Now they serve as accessories for wedding or other ceremonies. Hutzels tend to wear traditional dresses during those special occasions, and the men hold the axes.
If craftsmen refuse this profession, although it is not even a profession, it is a hobby, then it will disappear. It will only be history.
The axes sell for $10 or more, and local residents and tourists are the main customers.
How high can you jump? The current world record holder in pole vault can jump over 20 feet, but he's aiming for even higher after getting gold at the Tokyo Olympics.
Mondo Duplantis of Team Sweden won the gold medal in men's pole vault at the Tokyo Olympics, reaching a height of 6.02 meters, or 19 feet and 9 inches. He's also the current world record holder at 6.18 meters, or 20 feet and 3¼ inches. But the 21-year-old isn't stopping there.
I want to break the world record more times, and I really do want to get into like the 620s. I want to jump 620, and I want to get, because I just think 20 just sounds so good. It sounds so much higher than everything else. And so I think that sounds like kind of a level of its own right there, if I get into the 20s.
After it was clear that Duplantis would win the gold medal, he attempted 6.19 meters. On his first try, he went over the bar at first, but his chest caught the bar on the way down. He tried twice more, but it was not to be.
I was actually surprised on how high I was over it in the beginning, because I never, got my feet and my hips that high over a bar that high, it felt like. So, yeah, it was, I guess it's unfortunate that I wasn't able to make it, and that I brushed a little bit on the way down on my chest, but it's a huge confidence booster for the future, because I feel like I have a lot of higher heights in store now, and I feel like I can make 619, 620.
Another of Duplantis' goals, to become the world champion. He says the Olympics is probably the biggest achievement for him to date, but he hasn't claimed any world championships yet.
I need to win the world championships, because I never won the world championships yet. I got second in 2019, of course, to Sam. So, I have the world championships next year, and that's I guess the biggest goal, especially going into the following year.
Duplantis was born in Louisiana to a Swedish mother and an American father who was also a pole vaulter. Being an American-Swedish dual citizen, he chose to compete for Team Sweden. Although Duplantis would like to have broken the world record at the Olympics, he says he won't complain. Records can be broken by other people, but medals stay forever, and he says no one will be able to take that away.
We're all looking for ways to stay healthy and strong. Some of the best and easiest ways to give your body a fighting chance is to feed it with good, wholesome foods. And some are especially good at strengthening immunity.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. More and more people are getting worried about getting sick, especially due to the pandemic. Luckily, there are many ways you can reduce your chances of falling ill. Eating the right foods is, of course, a key aspect. Many foods have been scientifically shown to prevent and combat viral infections. Here are some of the most potent ones you can start adding today. First up is garlic. Garlic is loaded with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Garlic is beneficial in many ways. It strengthens the immune system, restores suppressed antibody response to disease, and helps to combat respiratory infections. Dr. David Friedman is the author of Food Sanity, How to Eat in a World of Fads and Fiction. He said garlic is his first choice as a food remedy. In 460 BC, Hippocrates, the father of medicine, prescribed garlic to treat a variety of medical conditions. Fast forward to 2020 and modern science confirms that garlic can treat everything from the common cold, flu, cardiovascular disease, and even helps in the prevention of cancer. Next on the list is ginger. Ginger is known to have antiviral properties. It contains more than 50 antioxidant compounds and has powerful anti-inflammatory benefits that have been shown to aid breathing and respiration. It's also great at relieving nausea, treating aches and pains in the body, and reducing indigestion. Basically, ginger can help both combat viral infections and alleviate its symptoms. Black and green tea. Both black and green teas have antiviral properties thanks to their enzyme inhibiting and receptor blocking properties. Tea is packed with catechins that have been shown to fight influenza and other respiratory viral infections. Tea is also loaded with antioxidants and flavonoids. It's the flavonoids that may help combat viruses, thanks to the way they interact with the gut's microbiome. Next on the list is turmeric. One really can't say enough good things about turmeric. It's packed with curcuminoids that have powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. They help protect the body, reduce pain, and even alleviate depression. Consume your turmeric with black pepper to significantly increase absorption of curcumin in the body. And finally, probiotic foods. Any food containing probiotics are your allies in the war against coronavirus and getting sick in general. Fermented foods with active cultures include yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi. Their role against viral infections is due to their immune-boosting properties, bolstering the body's white blood cell count. You have some great choices here. Even adding just a couple to your regular diet can help boost your immunity. Remember, stress also affects immunity, so take adequate time for self-care.
Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.